And there we go. Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining us, as always, is my co-host Tom. He is my subfaction, certainly. There's a lot of hidden tax with
I'm
Tom.
I'm Vince's best subfaction.
Yeah, indeed. You're like the artifact that I have to take to get into an otherwise good ability. That's what you are, Tom. But also joining us, coming back to the show, it's Chuck Strength Hammer. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight?
I hope everyone is doing well. You're looking well. Your room is looking fantastic. All set up behind you with all of your various doc
You
art.
like the picture over here? Maybe the one over here? Sorry. Low hanging fruit.
Do you
Indeed.
see what I have to live with? Do you see?
People said there's an echo. Is there still an echo? I don't think so. I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. Shouldn't be coming through on mine. Okay. I don't think there's an echo, but that's fine. I'll watch.
Cool.
Also joining us for the first time, it's Matt. What's up, Matt? How you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Oh, great, man. It's good to have you on the show. Matt is Chuck's partner in crime, co-judge of the Nova AOS tournament. He takes good care of us and all sorts of things. Matt, it's great to have you on the show, buddy. You and I have known each other for several years now. But yeah, it's great to finally have you here.
Oh, it's great to finally be here.
Matt takes good care of us and keeps Chuck sane during the Nova
Yeah.
Open AOS tournament, which is a very important role, I would add.
Yes.
Okay, good. Everybody's saying no echo, so that's good.
Yay.
And Matt is also part of our secret Nova crew, our secret Nova dinner crew. There's an elite club that the three of us are part of. Tom is not in it, but that's fine.
I haven't been to Nova.
Even if you
It doesn't
were,
mean you're
we-
invited.
yeah, we would just leave and not tell. Then you'd be like, "Where'd everybody go?" That's what I'm saying.
That wouldn't be the first time.
So tonight we're going to be discussing subfactions and what the best subfactions are in AOS. What makes a good subfaction? Why do some armies have them and some armies not? What's the deal? But of course, first, the news. Tommy, what do we got?
Rumor engine.
It's a Tyrannid.
Hey, don't be so negative.
I'm not. It's a Tyrannid.
It
It's-
could be a
it's just-
vampire scorpion.
It's a Tyrannid.
It could be a vampire scorpion. I like where your head's at.
But it's a Tyrannid.
Tyrannid, yeah.
It is
I
like
mean,
an exact duplicate of the Lictor tail.
Oh, I guess there is the chit in there. Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, and the Lictor is
Um,
like a really old,
Tyrannid.
terrible sculpt that has needed a resculpt for years and years and years. So, and we've seen other buggy things that clearly look like a Tyrannid, so it's a Tyrannid.
hmm
Sorry. Sometimes they're not for us, guys. There's more than one game there. They all
I
should
don't-
be for us, but that's
I don't
I thought there
believe it.
I thought 40K was just like animations and cartoons now.
It is, yes. It's all just, yeah, exactly. Just animations. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Okay. Tom, what else we got?
Bellicor.
Oh,
Yeah.
now we're talking about it.
Oh,
Boom! There's the big boy himself. Big, bad Bellicor. Yeah, so I'm going to shut up for a minute. Matt, you're the newest guest, so you have rights here. What's your opinion on Bellicor? What do you think of this guy?
I was completely shocked at how much bigger they decided to make him. Thankfully shocked. I think it's perfect. I think they hit the nail on the head. I love the ability to switch between AOS and 40K seamlessly. I think it's going to be a perfect addition. I hope that it is signs of maybe an updated Demon Prince as well.
I mean, here I said this last week, and I'll say it again. If it's not, okay, if there's no, I don't think there's an alternate build in here for a regular Demon Prince. I just don't. But if it's not, you're looking at every Demon Prince.
Yeah.
They're all just going to be this, right?
yeah.
As I said, it's going to be 50% this, 40% creature caster models, and 10% random other kit bashes and things. That
Well,
will be what every table looks like.
as I also said, I anticipated they would upscale it.
Just a tad. Yeah, he's bloodthirster sized.
Right, which is what I said. Go back and watch the video. I called it bloodthirster sized.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love him.
He's good.
Love him.
Yeah.
Like, yep.
Chuck, your take?
I feel bad that Scarbrand is so tiny now, but Be'lakor is absolutely amazing. GW just keeps making better and better models. They're the best model company. They keep proving it with things like this that come out that, I have a Slaves of Darkness army. I didn't really want to do Archeon, but I'm buying Be'lakor.
Sure.
Yeah.
He'll shoehorn right in. I've chosen my side, and it's his side on this little civil war they're doing, which I actually kind of like. That whole like there's a dead Chaos Warrior at his feet, not another Stormcast.
Can we just for a moment talk about the fact, like, here's the narrative that seems to be evolving. This is going to be a slight tangent, but it's really relevant to what you just said. Here's the narrative that seems to be evolving. Okay, Order undergoing an active civil war, right? Marathi rebelling with the IDK, and clearly, taking over a city. There's a clear distinction here, right? Where there's an Order civil war. One. Okay. Chaos. They're clearly setting up a civil war there between Be'lakor and Archeon, right? Okay. So, Death. They're setting up all of these vampires and all these new things to probably want to be out from under the thumb of Nagash in some way, right? Probably with the results of Broken Realms Techless, where, there's reason for them to be out at each other's throats. The only faction that the current narrative seems to be completely unifying, right? That says, it's all one big happy family. They're all together. They're not fighting. Is Destruction.
It's Wog time.
They're the ones who've got it together as they're marching straight for Excelsius.
Yeah, a family that was together. Yeah.
Indeed, Gordrak keeps his game tight. He keeps his hand strong, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Everybody else is ready to fight amongst themselves, but the Destruction faction is like, nah, we got this. We're a very ordered march to the sea. Let's go.
They're still going to fight amongst themselves, but for the betterment of their order and organization.
Right.
They're just beating out the weak. It's not I want this land, I want this city. It's like, no, I just want to fight, and then we're better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I realized that sort of occurred to me earlier today, and I was like, that's really hilarious that the only faction that seems to have it together and isn't at each other's throats is Destruction. Anyways, back to Be'lakor. Yeah, I mean, he's good. This paint job is, it's a technically very skilled paint job. It's just compositionally the most boring option they could have picked. I don't have the 40K image here, but the 40K image is so much better, where they painted his chest lighter and used a bright blue rune and brightened up his face, and he's a good model. It's just this paint job is devoid of interest. There's two things on this guy that isn't gray, right?
You shut your mouth. I like gray Be'lakor just because this is how mine's painted, because this is how he's painted.
Yeah, I fell asleep looking at him. I don't give a crap if that's the official paint job. Boring is boring. And again, that's not a judgment on the painters. I understand that's probably the way that they've drawn him to look. You can do that in art, because in art, he can be this gray, monolithic shadow being, because behind him there can be bright colors and other things going on in the scene and stuff like that. There are things that work in art that don't work on models, because the model is just a model. It doesn't have a background and other figures in the scene and magical effects exploding and moonlight and every other nonsense thing you can put into 2D art, right? Mm-hmm. So no, we got to pop this up. I'm gonna be buying this guy, and we're gonna be popping him up.
No, I mean what
LED in the base, right? Is that what you're talking about?
just popping all over the place. Yeah, certainly he's going to be taller. Yeah, you bet. That's going to be way up. We're bringing him way taller. That's number one.
So, I mean, what I'll say is this. What he's missing is if you put a green flat, mine is my pop color is a neon green. You could do anything. But where the smoky mist meets the blade, right?
Yeah.
If that went from like white touching the blade through green to black on the tendrils at the top, so it's like super brilliant right along the blade. If the chaos symbol in his chest was similarly glowing, maybe his eyes and a couple other spots on the base, I think it would look completely different.
I think if the armor had color to it that wasn't just more gray, and
Right.
if and yes, if you actually did like his face, the general rule of this is absolutely. Some people are saying pink and teal. That's you got the right answer now.
I mean, that's all. That is always your answer, by the way.
Much like early '90s Pepsi commercial, you got the right one, baby. So one of the general simple rules of miniature painting is the face should be the area that draws the most attention. You can barely pick his face out of the model, at this scale. The only thing that draws attention is the sword and the little bit of blue wispy stuff, because it's the only even like close to saturated color on here. So anyways, again, I'm not judging the painters. The Heavy Metal team, as usual, did a fantastic job on this. It is technically painted extremely well. They translated the art, which works in 2D, but doesn't work in a 3D model. That's all I'm saying. By the way, the 40K one still feels mostly gray. Right? It's not like they went nuts and made him pink and teal like I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's just like he has this bright chest and then a face that's more dark and has like it stands out. Yeah. So.
Yep.
Anywho, I'm excited to paint him. I'm excited to get him. Win Ken have.
I don't know. We'll probably know 12 more releases with the way that now we know Broken Realms 3, but we don't know the release date of Broken Realms 2. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, they need to reveal Broken Realms 3 before that comes out, so you gotta watch.
Well, we'll get on to like next they'll reveal Broken Realms 5. We'll just skip 4 entirely. 1, 2, 3, 5. That's what I'll what?
Chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? It's all chaos. Hey, side note, by the by, I like revealing Broken Realms 3 as quick as they did. Thank you. But and I know release dates are hard right now. I know that. I really know that because, as we'll talk about in Hobby Time, I know how hard getting stuff is, right? But the reality is, man, can we just we're so close. You've almost got a roadmap. Like, we're almost there. Just put the next 6 months up and be like, here it is. You've done it already for Underworlds. You've told us the next 2 books in this series. Like, guys, you're so close. Just take the last step and put it up there and be like, this is the order of releases. When exactly they'll happen, that's sort of TBD, but this is the general order for the next 6 months.
How amazing would that be?
It'd be completely amazing because AOS 3 would be on that list. And then we'd all we could stop being like, blah, blah, blah.
They would list it and then just put question mark at the end and leave it. Because they're not going to tell you when AOS 3 drops.
This summer. It comes out this summer. I don't know that, but you know what I do know? It comes out this summer. I don't know it for a fact, but I know it to be true.
You're starting to sound like me. Let me just say that.
I have zero doubt.
I was the one beating that drum, and I still believe it's true, obviously. But yeah.
So
Bellator.
And then obviously this is the book.
Can we talk about the fact that we have a new model that's been developed for a splat book, like a narrative book?
A new model, yeah, sure. I mean, this is what we expected. That is the Psychic Awakening model. That's what we talked about. So yes,
right.
Of the new heroes. By the way, I would just like to draw everybody's attention to this cover image of Be'lakor. Hey guys, let's look over here. Notice this Be'lakor? Look at the cover image of Be'lakor. See how he's purple, and there's blue lights and magenta hues in his horns, and his wings are clearly red. By the by. Okay.
When they're backlit, they're red.
Yeah,
they're not backlit in the model.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. But you see how the cover artist used color to make it compositionally interesting? I'm just saying. These are just things I'm pointing out. You take whatever you want from that.
I mean, or just more contrast. Like if the wing membranes would have went to white on the edges, or like white in the, like instead of just gray, all of it being gray and black.
Sure.
No, I agree.
And so IT said people aren't likely to yell at GW if the Underworld's roadmap has changed, which it did. Like it did change since they first tried it out. 40K on the other hand, sure. I mean, they've been more open about 40K than they have about AOS, by the way. Mm-hmm. But my answer is okay. Like
someone's always gonna get mad.
Somebody's always gonna get mad. Don't listen to the 3 idiots yelling on the internet. Listen to the 99% of your audience you just made very happy, right? Mm-hmm. So there you go. Anyway, yeah, Be'lakor, Broken Realms Be'lakor. I'm excited about it. He's clearly going to get some new rules. So we're going to play a game right now. Everybody ready? Okay, game time. What time is it? It's game time. Okay, here's the game we're going to play. Everybody is going to guess how many points new Be'lakor is going to be. All right? We're going to go around the chat and we're going to guess how many points, because Be'lakor is going to be newer, bigger, badder, awesome. Like he won't have his current scroll. He'll be way bigger, way more awesome because they sized him up. That's how things work in AOS. The bigger they get, the badder they get, right? So, Matt, starting with you. Standard price is right. Rules apply. How many points is Be'lakor?
380 on the button.
380 on the button. Yes, for reference, he's currently 240. Okay, so, Tom.
420.
420, a popular choice. Okay. Chuck, do you have a guess?
I'm going to abstain because I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm not allowed to talk.
That's fair. I did not contemplate that as a reality, but that is a fair answer, Chuck. I apologize.
It's all good.
Yeah, that's very funny. Fair. I am going to say 500. I'm going hard 500.
Whoa, okay.
Oof.
Big. Okay. He's going to be unallyable and a big boy. He's going to be in the Gordorak, I'm almost a god, but I'm not quite a god. That kind of level. Okay? That's my particular feeling. So, anyways, all right, cool. I did spring that on you, so sorry, Chuck. Anyways.
No problem. It was fun.
I think that, I just feel like he's going to be that kind of a place in the world. But yeah, I'm excited for Broken Realms Be'lakor. I'm very excited to see the narrative of what happens between he and Archaon. I think that's what we're all like. Really, these books, the thing that's killed me the most about Techless being so long to come out is like, I want to know what happens next, man. I've never been more excited for the AOS narrative, and we're stuck here like in this holding pattern after the amazing Broken Realms Morathi, just waiting on the next evolution of the story.
Actually, there's a little bit kind of caught me off guard. I was reading the Daughters of Cain book when it finally came in not long ago.
Sure.
They actually already resolved her taking Anvil Guard in the Daughters of Cain book in like a short little vignette.
Yeah, that happened.
I know. I was like,
we moved on from that.
I was like, what's going to happen? I'm like, okay, we're done. Next.
Yeah.
I was so surprised to read that. I'm like, I'm not upset. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, they just literally like, we're going to try to take it back and then, nah. Like, it's just, nope, call it off. It's hers now.
Favorite.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. So there you go. I mean, the end of this road is certainly like a lot of different civil wars and reasons why everybody can be fighting all the time. Mm-hmm. Alliances breaking out, ruining. It's just, it's going to be Game of Thrones, right? That's what we're going to get into.
And it's why destruction can actually make the progress that they're making, right? Mm-hmm. Like whatever ground that they gain, they can do that because everybody's in fighting.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's no unified front anywhere.
Yep, exactly. Hey, it's a great day to be an orc, right? So there you go. Okay. What other new stuff did we have?
Well, tiles for Cursed City.
Yeah, we saw the tiles. Mm-hmm. I thought they looked cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Fine.
Box win?
I'll play a game.
Win Ken has box?
I'll play a game on those tiles, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Like, they're pretty. Good art. Okay.
And then finally, list bot, list compare.
Oh, yeah, man. List bot. So JP, who had made ListBot a while back and has now made a new ListBot app where you can post in your list directly from War Scroll Builder, and it reads your list and then gives you grade scores for like offense and defense and casting and shooting and mobility and so on. Then gives your list an overall scoring and letter grade. Talks about how it compares to other similar lists, and then like if you scroll, it actually has lots of interesting information. It'll find sort of percentage matches of lists and unit comparisons of what's in sort of other tournament lists and stuff. It's really, really smart stuff. I want to have JP on at some point in time to talk about like his work in with AI and that kind of thing and ListBot. And it's very fun. I posted my Slanesh list that I like in there, and it was a C+. So
I know I put in my list from a weekend event, and it's like, here's an A+, like pushing S. I'm like, oh neat. I put in a Kraith, and it's like A-. I'm like, okay. Like
womp womp womp.
It's very hard to build a bad doc list on like ListBot has gotten to doc. It's got your number.
It's like, all right, we're good.
ListBot's like, no.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool tool. Like, obviously, ListBot only knows certain things. Like, the AI doesn't really understand rules at a deep level. It's not using, like, NLP to read the rules and stuff at that level or to understand the interactions. But it's using, like, it's using its understanding based on the performance of past lists and things like that. From what I understand. JP, if you watch this and I got anything wrong, please do just come on the show and correct me. I want to talk about AI with you for 2 hours, and we'll bore everybody in the world, including Tom. But I am really fascinated because this is basically the kind of stuff I do in my daily job, like for a professional career. So I'm very interested in these applications, and I had a big conversation over WhatsApp with JP about like how ListBot could evolve, and he had some good ideas, and I was talking about the kind of types of things I'd like to see. Anyways, it's cool. Check your list out. It's fun. The link's down in the description, so you can play with it.
Yeah.
It should be taken as a directional indicator only because it will miss tricks, right? Like it won't understand if your list relies on complex interactions.
Like combos, it won't get.
Yeah, like certain combos are like the power of Slanesh to exploit a 6-inch pile-in. It really doesn't know, like it doesn't know how that powerful that might be. It only knows if lots of people in the past exploited 6-inch pile-ins. And won tournaments with lists doing that, then it will know that that's a good trick. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
And when I put my Slanesh list in, it was really fun to watch it be like, here are the past tournament lists that did really well with Slanesh, because it'll show like, here are similar past tournament lists. And as I scrolled through, it was all like 2019, 2019, 2019, 2020, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember those days. The days when we were broken. Yes. So there you go. Yeah, Khalil says he said on Twitter it understands stat lines and attacks but not special abilities. Yeah, exactly. Like it understands that a special ability is present. Like it knows there's some rules there. It just doesn't know how to rate the value of them effectively. So
yeah, and I love tools like that because it's a tool that's going to give you some valuable information. You can also say, but I'm going to ignore it.
Sure.
Like it's valuable, but it's like baseball. Like humans will make an error, so it's not going to ever take an effect for that really. But that's what makes our game fun. Also looking at this type of data.
Yeah, it's a neat tool that you should take it for what it is. Something that's directionally interesting, right? And gives you lots of... The cool parts about its feedback isn't actually like the letter grade and that kind of stuff. It's so you can see like other units you might want to put in your list, that like lists that look like yours often have, or choices lists like yours often make, or other tournament lists that have done well that might look slightly different than yours but are close, right? That's actually really potent, powerful information that JP's providing there. That's the kind of stuff you should look at, right? Because that's where you can actually like, especially if you're not sure or you're new with an army or whatever, where you can, you can gain a lot of info. So yeah, check it out. It's in the description. Have fun. Just paste it in from Scroll Builder and have a good time. I appreciate that. I think Gary P made, or maybe it was Darren. I don't remember who did it. One of the two of them made a list that actually scored, I think, a 2. By the way, so to put this into reference, My Slanesh list, it was a C plus, had an 821 rating. I don't know what Chuck's had, but it was much higher, I'm sure. So they got a 2. Like 821, 2.
2.
And it was like a Slanesh list using all Beasts of Chaos, mostly Cygors, and then regular Gors.
Oh, that's
It
good.
was incredible.
Wow.
It was just like
Oh.
you list spot was just like nah dog.
It's like, what are you even doing?
No.
There's nothing here, man. You need to stop. But yeah, it was great. Anyways, poor Gore and Cygor, as we discussed last week, they need some help. All right. Any other news stuff we've got this week, Tom?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. All right, cool. So, let me bring this back up. All right, so then, marking our time as we turn to some pick of the week. Absolutely. Pick of the week. Matt, what would you like to share to everybody?
I definitely got to share. Friend of the show, AOS Coach,
Yes.
just put out a video about Iron Jaws, which is great because I was just talking to Chuck the other day. I'm like, I'm looking at the book, but I can't figure out how the book works. Like I see that you know every time like someone puts a tier list together, such as yourself, it's always looked at kindly, and I'm like, I don't get it. Every time I build a list, I'm sitting there like, okay, now I have 1890. What do I do with that? You know?
Sure.
Yeah, it was very helpful.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, that's good. Chuck, what about yourself?
I want to point everybody to a Twitter. Dan C, the Tyromancer on Twitter. He just did a wonderful thing. He was doing a custom avatar of Kane for himself, and he decided to just reach out to me and say, hey, let me make you one. And he took my Terrathian Cult rune, put that on the chest instead of the normal Daughter's Kane rune, and even went and spliced in a 3D sculpt of Taylor Swift's face head for its head, printed it for free, sent it to me, and I was just like, let me at least pay for the shipping. But he does great stuff. It was really kind of like humbling to get something so cool like that. I can't wait to paint it up. So yeah, go check out Dan, the Tyromancer on Twitter.
Oh yeah, definitely jaw dropping.
Very nice. I will get the Twitter account and from you, Chuck, and I will post it up in the description. Tom, what about yourself? What do you want to share with everybody this week?
Nothing.
Okay, that's all right. Fortunately, we have 3 other people. Tom has consumed no content, nothing. He sat in a small, dark room.
I'm helping out. I'm helping streamline the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes. You sound like me with my what I've decided to say now when I get my locus off in Slanesh. I'm gonna roll a 3+ to save you time in combat. Successful. Your game is now faster. You're welcome. It's amazing how fast you can make the game when you stop all the enemy from piling in at all. It really gets rid of the worst part of the game. Okay. So my pick of the week, I've got to direct everybody to the one and only Trapped Under Plastic. So this is the podcast of John and Scott, or Ninjon and Miniac, or Trapped Under Plastic. But Trapped Under Plastic, their newest episode, which has the most insane thumbnail in the history of the world, which I love very much, is a recount of VinciCon, which happened here 2 weekends ago, or a week and a half ago, whatever. Of myself and Scott and John and Sam all hanging out, obviously, when we did the reaction show and all of that. They're recounting their tales with it, and I'll tell you, it was great. To just relive it through them was honestly very fun. So if you want to experience what just hanging out here, I guess, for a weekend would be like, that's the way to do it. It's not that exciting, but there you go. But they make it fun, and it's a great podcast / YouTube show, and I will link it down below. And I miss those guys already, and why is there not like a bullet train in between Minnesota and Ohio so I could go visit all the time? All right. So with that, let's turn to some hobby time. Matt, you working on anything? What's on your table, buddy?
Well, it's not on my table yet, but I've ordered a bunch of Slaves of Darkness a couple weeks ago. I'm sure it'll ship eventually. But
This is not uncommon.
but until then, I've been working on Lumineth slowly but surely. I'm by no stretch of the means a fast painter. So far I've completed 5 spearmen, and that has taken me about 20 hours. So
It's progress. It's all right. Don't get weighed down. Just keep slow and steady. Wins the race. All right. The tortoise still crosses the finish line.
The problem is I also have the box of the other 35 that have yet to be painted, along with the rest of the army.
Don't let that.
And more army coming out.
I should put that away.
Don't worry about it. Just let it. I say, let it go. Like you'll get there. Don't worry. Okay. I'll tell you a quick inspirational story. Friend of mine who I normally play with came to my house for a game this weekend. He plays Lumineth. Now, my friend has played High Elves back in the day. The last time I've played Warhammer with this guy regularly for more than 20 years. He has never painted a fig in the entire time that I've played Warhammer. Not once. All of his figs he played with were stuff he painted in the 90s. Okay? He came to my house this last weekend, and he opened a box, like a box that he had brought over with him, and he took out painted Lumineth Realm Lords. Like he had 10 Wardens painted, he had his Cow Mountain painted, he had 5 Dawn Riders painted.
Holy shit!
Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Yes, absolutely. Yes, he had, and then he had more stuff that was assembled but not painted. Right, he had gotten like some of the Hammer Bros and all of that and put it all together. First time, and no joke, probably 24 years he's painted a Warhammer figure, and he's already plowing through it. So my point is, you can do it. If he can do it, you can do it. Trust me.
Quick note on Lumineth. Isn't it great that they finally got rid of all those phoenixes and dragons?
I completely agree. It's their tired tropes, and I say goodbye. Like now we've got great aesthetics.
Is beat out.
Exactly. We've all been there, done that, seen it before. You're right, Matt, and thank you, Matt, for having the courage to say it. I appreciate it and support you 100%. Tom's gonna need another drink much faster than he anticipated.
Yep.
Okay. So, Chuck, what about you, buddy? What's your hobby time? What have you been up to?
Well, I just finished the Daughter's Cane last endless spell / prayer today, and I do have technically 2 avatars of Cane to paint up. The one from Tyromancer and a wonderful one that Matt picked up for me. And I'm getting 10 snakes, 5 Canary, and the Melusai Iron Scale Friday. So I'm kind of in between docks. So my immediate hobby is one, focusing on the CrossFit Open, which starts this Friday. So I've been kind of preparing physically for that, but you talk about that on our podcast. But I'm currently sewing because over Christmas, good friend Omri, he's from Israel, got patches made for me of like logo and like Terathi and all this stuff. One to put on like my CrossFit equipment, but he sent me a bunch of them, so I'm going to also I'm sewing them to my Warhammer bags right now. So sewing is my current hobby.
Nice.
You need to get a bomber jacket.
There we
That's
go.
true.
There we go.
That's true.
You'd wear it well, I'm sure. All right, Tom, what about you? You got anything on the table? You've been working on any hobby?
You can't see it.
Okay.
But my area is really clean.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean,
did you clean up your hobby space in a sort of Zen-like anticipation of a new project? Is that what happened?
I mean, so I'm gonna make everybody sick, but
don't move your camera. We trust you.
I'm gonna
Oh,
I have an open area.
Oh, there you
like
go.
that.
Ooh.
Like that doesn't happen. Like that has been piles of models and paints and cards and stuff like that. And so like I have space here, and that's just a small area. Actually, the whole basement, like I've been on a cleaning kick because I've been selling lots of like my childhood,
Sure,
lots of toys, and so yeah, I've been doing a lot of that, so it's been fun.
Good. I mean, you know my habits. I
do.
work a project, then everything goes away, everything gets cleaned, basement gets cleaned. All the paints go back on their appropriate spot. All brushes get cleaned down. Desk gets wiped down. Palette gets changed, and then we go to the next project. It's a very, it's an important habit, right? For myself, my hobby time, I've been working on a really big video on something that I can't really talk about. So, but that'll come for the future. But most importantly, today, I finally got all my Slanesh stuff. Literally just opened the box not a couple hours before this show. Haven't got to crack into anything yet, but I am very excited about that. So my order came in. I think I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna start, because yes, I ordered one box of them. Look, I can't help myself. I'm gonna start with the Slangor Fiend Bloods. That's what I'm painting first. Like, we're gonna get them out of the way right away. Just get them done, and then we get into the good stuff. Because I think if I get them, because otherwise, if I don't do them first, I'll just be like, I don't want to paint these guys. They're so bad. But if I paint them first, then I can get through it. So I'll do them, and then I'm real excited to get into them Slick Blades. That's what I want, because I want to get those bad boys on the table more. Stop using Chaos Knights to proxy them in my games. So there you go. All right. So yeah, lot of hobby time, and I'm excited about a couple of the videos and the stuff I've been working on and recording. It's actually been a lot more of that kind of stuff this week than I would have liked, but that's okay. We got some good stuff. Okay, gentlemen. Well, are you ready? Are we ready to go to the main topic? Are we ready to talk Subfactions?
I'm ready.
All right.
Sure.
Then, gentlemen, let's talk the best Subfactions in the game.
Right here.
There you go. Yes.
Got it.
Handled. He's got it.
Good
No
show.
need to worry. Good show. It's over. Wrap it up. Wrap it up. No. So, okay, we're going to start at a high level view. So, because I want to talk about just your 40,000 foot view. What do you think makes a good or compelling subfaction, right? What does that even mean? So, Chuck, as you have some, like, you literally rep a subfaction. It's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this with you on the show. I know of few people who rep a subfaction as hard as you do. Okay? So, what attracted you to Kraith? Like, what was it? Why?
It's a very much a blending of the narrative behind that subfaction and how its rules interpret how it comes to life on the table. The army books are a great way to say, here's what everything in this army is like. You know, it's like very broad brush. This is what this army is about. Then you get to the temples, and that's more of the concrete, you know, getting granular on, but what are they? What do they do in the mortal realms? Who do they interact with? What do they do on the battlefield? Which, I mean, ultimately, that's what we care about. How do they fight? But I do it with Kraith because Daughter's Canes is my favorite. But like, I'm pretty hard set with every army I play. I usually pick one subfaction that I fall in love with, whether it's Iliatha and Lumineth Realm Lords, or Brumadar in Ideneth Deepkin, or Godseeker in Slanesh, because I fall in love with the story and how that story is brought to life through the rules. So it has to be a really nice blend of those two, I think, to really be a home run.
Okay. All right. I like that. I'm trying to figure out. They're saying there's an echo. I'm just trying to figure out where it's coming from. I don't know. It's a mystery. I'll try to track it down. Tom, you go. I think it's only when I speak. I don't know though. Maybe.
So for me, I also often fall in love with a single subfaction when I start to play an army, but most of the time because it's the best one. No, for me, it's I have to look at all of the abilities, and I have to like 3 of them.
Okay.
That's the bar. If there are 3 that I really like, and they can't be super circumstantial, like they have to be things that are going to apply to 80% of my game.
Something you'll do every time, at least a few times.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not gonna apply to 4 out of my 5 turns, then it may just be ipsum lorem text.
Now, I'm curious, do you fall in love with something like me with Kraith, where it's literally one ability that I'm like, I want to do this over and over and over again? You know, but granted, maybe those wouldn't for you because that's never usually the best subfactions in a book.
Yeah, it's a great question. I used to say for Doc, it was for Hagnar, it was the rerollable save.
Mhm.
Or like it was to having the 5+ like broadcasted. But the reality is there were a lot of things that attracted me to it when I was a big Hagnar fan, right? It was the fact that it coordinated with my battalion, and it didn't have terrible item options. Like, it wasn't good, but it wasn't terrible. And more than importantly, like, I got to reroll all hits, which was a really big deal. And so I think that normally it's no. Let me just say this. I think there are some times that like single abilities will sell an entire subfaction for me.
Okay.
And so I think about like Hermdar.
Sure.
The always strikes first is why I'm there. That's it. Because of how dominant, if we want to be positive, or oppressive, if you want to be negative, that ability is. It will swing games. You know, people have joked around about how strong, not Heartrenders, how strong Life Takers are, and it's funny. It makes me laugh. But the reality is that, like, you know, people are like, well, what is the counter to Life Takers? Hearthguard Berserkers.
Sure. Sure.
Volkites. In any of those units in Fire Slayers, because they're going to hit first. It doesn't matter if they're charged or not. And so, like, I say that flippantly, but like, that is an ability that is so strong and so determinative of how I'm going to play the game that, like, the bubble of -1 to wound, which is really, really good, is an afterthought to me.
Sure. Okay.
So,
Matt, how about yourself? What makes a good subfaction for you?
Well, I personally, whenever I go into looking at a new book, I always see, you know, you kind of look at the War Scrolls overall and you kind of see, okay, the army kind of wants me to play this way or kind of play this way. That's wherever I want to then turn my attention to the subfactions and go, okay, this one aspect, we're going to crank that up to like 8 to 10. And now you can play the army in that way and not focus on the others. And, you know, I think some of the newer books like Lumineth do that really well. Some of the older books, like, say, Stormcast, where it's like, here's a whole new ability. Just run with it. And I definitely like something where it actually takes a little bit more of the rules in effect, as opposed to kind of like toe stubbing.
well, it's like transformative, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Where it's actually like it's transforming and changing the actual way that you play that thing.
Almost heightened. I would say more heightened than transform.
Yeah, I totally. I love all of this. Hopefully, I've solved the echo issue. I don't hear anything, so hopefully we're good. I turned my gain down a little, fixed some sound stuff. Hopefully that solved it. At any rate, what's fascinating is you all gave me 3 different answers, and I agree with all 3 of them. Okay, because this is why I think subfactions have become such a, again, to say it negatively, like I'll use Tom's parlance here, to say it negatively, crutch, right? To say it positively, enjoyable aspect of each battle tome, right? Because they define the army in a very real way. Like, Chuck, your statement about the flavor of the thing, and being able to say, this is a unit you like, this is where it belongs, this is a home for it, this expresses, you know, an element of it and makes you feel like you really understand where they sit in the mortal realms, what they're doing, right? Like Kraith and the Sisters of Slaughter in that temple and its dedication, okay? So just looking at something like that, that's fantastic. You look at what Tom said, the rules, right? Sometimes the rules are absolutely something that attracts us in, right? because it's a cool ability or something powerful or something we wanted to do, or it makes some element of the army we really like really strong, right? Drake Ganeth and Doc. We're gonna talk Doc a fair amount here because it's just a pretty example of like compelling subfactions, right?
It is.
Yep.
And when you look at that, it's like, oh, I love this aspect of the thing, right? I love witches and sisters, and I want them to go blender people. Well, giving them all an extra pip of rend is certainly going to go a long way toward accomplishing that, right? Or what Matt said, which is the one that I think resonates most strongly with me, is I think of armies like a big cartoon diamond. You know, like picture a giant cartoon diamond that people would try to steal, right? And it's always like this oversized gem with like the perfectly cut facets, you know? Imagine if you had that big giant gem in real life. As you turn it and the light like hits different surfaces and it expresses different facets in different ways. That seems to be, Matt, what you're hitting on. I think the same thing. Like, oh, I really like the monster aspect of this army or something. That's usually what I'm saying. And then here's the subfaction that lets me express the monsters, right? And turn them up to 11. To as you said, heighten those or whatever, right? I don't want to get bogged down in the terminology, but yes, it lets you take that and just like ramp it up, right? We're all about the monsters. That's what we're here for, man. I got here to play my big stompy things, or I'm all about the spell casting. I want to dominate the magic phase, right? Like, so all that kind of stuff. And I think that subfactions do all three of those things, right? And the best ones do all three of those well. Like, it combines good narrative with rules that are compelling but not broken. Like, that's where Hermdar fails for me. It's just, it's too much. It's handing away too much.
It's too oppressive.
Right. Especially when combined with the other stuff that they do, right?
It takes command points.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean against Lumineth, like that is meaningful.
I'm gonna kick you out of the stream. All right. So at any rate,
but it is like because they doubled your cost for all that stuff.
I understand. Yes, if they're playing Techless and get Total Eclipse off. Yes, I understand you can cast Total Eclipse without Techless, but whatever. It's on an 8. Anyways. Oh no, the smallest violin in the world plays for your Hermdar against one army, not being the most broken thing in combat. So like but the point is that a great subfaction to me has a compelling narrative that uses units in an interesting way. It heightens a facet of the army that otherwise might be unexplored, right? Does what a battle tome should do. It brings out, because we could all just play Warhammer. We could play AOS without the books, right? We don't actually need these books. Like, we can use the scrolls and the points without any of these books, and it would work. Game's playable, right? Completely functional game, right? So, okay, if we're going to lay a book on top, it better do something besides just be a collection of the war scrolls, right? And I think subfactions do that really well. Right, they express everything that you guys have covered there. So I'm glad you all just picked exactly the 3 points I wanted to hit. Well done.
Yay.
Okay. So I want to start with a little chart here. We're going to bring up a little chart. This is actually prepared by Mr. Adam Mumford. Who, thank you, Adam. I stole this from Adam by way of Rob. So full credit to him. Rob actually did a show earlier in this week using this little piece of data, but I wanted to bring it back up because I thought it was really useful. So what's on the screen here that you guys can see is all of the different armies broken down by faction, and then how many units they have, how many subfactions they have, and how many battalions they have. Okay? I love this. I love this data. This is fantastic, right? One of the things that's fairly obvious about this is that in most cases, there is an inverse correlation between the number of scrolls you have and the overall power of the army. In other words, the more scrolls you get, the sort of like more you plateau or start to go down on power. It's not completely true, but It's not completely wrong either. The and whereas like the armies that seem to perform really well are like the ones that have a middling number of units, like are right in the sweet spot where they've got just enough that they don't have a lot of fat, but they can fill all the roles, you know, kind of hitting that sweet spot there. But anyways, in the subfaction list here, I found it fascinating because there are zeros on this list, right?
Yeah, Nighthaunt.
Nighthaunt have 0, absolutely.
Mhm.
The Skaven have 0,
Mhm.
right? Gits have 3, but only by way of White Dwarf articles, right?
So like those 3 should be like parenthetical.
Right, it's like 3, but
Mhm.
we need like the asterisks, right? Okay. If people need me to zoom in more, I don't know if you can see it. I was trying to make sure that the whole thing could fit on page, but I'll zoom in for you. Maybe that reads better. Then we lose the edge here, so it's kind of a thing of like I only have so much space to show it. But I'll zoom in. So units, subfactions, battalions. There are zeros on this list. There are like 3s, 5s. Cities of Sigmar technically has 9 at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to set a couple thoughts up here where I want us to discuss right now. Here is thought 1. Okay. Does every book need subfactions, or should we be still designing books without subfactions? Okay, so question the first. Question the second, or discussion point the second, okay, is there are 3 models of subfaction design in some way that we're going to call that, okay? Model the first is the standard, the completely standard subfaction. A generic ability, a command ability, command trait, and an artifact. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a completely standard model. Okay. Model the second is the what I would call the Cities of Sigmar, Slanesh, Slaves to Darkness model, right? Where, yes, there's a subfaction and it dictates some rules, but it doesn't dictate everything, right? It's more open. So this would be like Living City or Cabalists or Despoilers, right? Where yes, it's a thing. It's clearly a thing. It's granting abilities. It's saying you're in this city, right? You must pick one of these things, right? In Cities and in Slaves, you must pick one of those things. Because from them, you can still get to your choice on command traits and artifacts, but they sit under the subfaction, not over.
Mm-hmm.
You with me? On model on the second type? Okay. The third type is the Skaven/Gits model. Okay? Where you don't have any traditional subfactions, but you have instead you just have like discrete rules for all your different types of things, right? Like Clan Eshin does this, and Clan Mulder, if you have a Clan Eshin hero, they act like this. If you have a Clan Mulder hero, they act like this, and they grant you this Benny, and so on and so forth, right? But they're not subfactions in the same way, because I can mix and match that freely. I could have all 5 of those clan rules, or 6 of those clan rules, or whatever. Master, Verminous, 6. Okay, I could have the whole group in one army. I could express all of those at once, right? Okay. Same with Gits. Like I can have goblins and trolls and be under the bad moon, and all those things can be popping, right? All right. So, my question is: so now that I've laid this groundwork, Tom, I want to start with you.
Okay.
Is there a model that we should be using? Should we be relying on the tried and true standard model, right, of ability, blah, 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 blah? Should they all just look like that in the future? Should we keep varying the design? What do you think? Should we still have stuff with basically none?
I think that the design should still be. I think that all of them should have subfactions, because subfactions tell you something about the army. It directs decision making. And it helps shape identity. So yes, we should have subfactions universally. How that gets trotted out, though, I think there should be a lot of flexibility in that. What I hate is what has been standardized, which is generic ability, command trait, item. Okay. That is boring. Like yawn. Like it's completely uninteresting to me because we've done it so many times. And so I look like back at the end of the last edition when they were still like kind of exploring the subfaction thing. And I felt like they got so many things right there. And so examples of this were the Doc 1.0 book, where like your subfaction actually manipulated your battalions.
Mm-hmm.
Or your IDK book, where it manipulated your battalion. Sometimes it shaped a bonus spell. It's like sometimes that was something that happened instead of one of those other abilities. So maybe instead of a generic command ability that everybody in that allegiance gets, it was a bonus spell or whatever. Like, I wish we would be exploring those other spaces. I like the space that we've explored with like Cities of Sigmar, with like battalions specific to subfactions. Totally okay with that. What I don't like is when that's the only option.
I'm going to talk for a second here. Do I sound different to you guys? Do I sound weird?
No,
No,
it's somebody's speaker.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting rid of the echo. I don't know how this sounds to everybody else because I can't listen to us. So I'm talking right now, folks. Tell me if this sounds like horrendously worse. It seems to still be capturing the audio. I switched the audio input. We'll see if that makes a difference for now. Unless I sound absolutely terrible because I'm using a microphone I wouldn't normally use to do this. Anyways. Okay, fair enough. So feedback in the chat, please, if this sounds absolutely terrible. Anyways, Chuck, what about you? Like, what's your preference on this? Do you want to see the variants? Do you want to see the standardization? Do you think subfactions as a whole aren't good? Which we're going to get to that. There's been some people expressing that comment, so we'll talk that through in a minute.
I'll start with the fact our subfactions need it, and I'm going to use a probably really unpopular analogy here with myself. So take Cthulhu, that whole mythos. When you look at it, when I look at it as it is, it's just Cthulhu, all those things. It is the most boring, useless thing I have ever been through. I'm like, this is dumb. This is dull. Oh, there's a color that you can't comprehend. So no, that's stupid. All right. Like it doesn't hit for me. But when you put it through a lens like Warhammer, World of Warcraft, pick a bunch of other ones, it suddenly becomes much more interesting. And that's what subfactions do to army books to me, that maybe army books that I wouldn't care to look at. Like I have the Fire Slayers Battle Tome and the KO Battle Tome because the subfactions are really interesting to me. And that's what kind of grabs me towards those armies that I'm probably still not going to play, but there's more of a chance because of them being there. As far as standardization versus variants, I mean, I would always kind of lean towards variants. I don't mind having a few. Maybe they're like, okay, here's one that's, Hagnar, sorry, here's your taxes because this is going to be the one that's going to be maybe obviously good in the competitive scene. Maybe not so much now, but then have other ones that might be a little bit looser. I think you can have that within the same book. And I have to agree with Tom with Doc 1.0 when we had the ability to change battalions based upon which faction you chose. Mm-hmm. That was so much fun. Sad to see it gone for whatever reason, but yeah, like let's have fun with it. But like, there is a limit. There is a threshold that if you cross too far, it's like, okay, well then this, it becomes that oppressive thing accidentally, maybe through some really crazy shenanigans. So yes, I want subfactions to be around. I want a little bit of variance, but not too far.
Okay, fair enough. I switched my audio back, everybody, so hopefully this sounds like not insane again. I apologize. I had to test. Could have been better. So this is what we get for doing a live show. Things change. Tom, I blame your kid. I blame your son's headphones. Anyways, Matt, what about you? Where are you sitting on all this? What do you think?
Well, I feel like subfactions, like to go without subfactions would be like going to Red Robin and go, just give me the regular burger. Don't even give me the bun. Just throw the plate. Give me a plate. Throw a patty on it. Do you have chopsticks? Like that's. Now, with that being said, can you make a burger good enough that you don't need condiments? Yeah. Do I want that? I'd probably at least like some cheese. I mean, but like I said, with that being said, it's like I agree with Tom in a lot of aspects where I like the idea of not conforming to a template.
Yeah, sure.
Having something different. Again, if I had to choose between where we are now or just going no subfactions, I'd prefer where we are right now.
Gotcha.
But like I said, in the illusionary world of tomorrow, where anything is possible, I would love to see them spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, to me, I think the answer is, and by the way, I hear no echo right now, so it was definitely,
So you were right.
It was definitely Tom. So there we go. It was you, Tom.
I wanted to test.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's definitely you.
Okay, well, let's see what I can do about that.
That's all
Continue.
good. It's fine. Okay, so the like, I thought a lot about this beforehand because honestly, I play a lot of books that use a lot of different, kind of conceptions of this because of the armies that I favor, and I don't play a lot of books that have the normal subfactions. Okay, like my two favorite armies, Skaven, no subfactions to speak of, right? Kind of build your own adventure, and Slaanesh with like the weak subfaction idea, or what I'll call it the inverted subfactions, right, where the command traits and artifacts are derived from the subfaction choice as opposed to flipping the other way around, right? And I really do like that that option. I like that there's a variance to it. I think it has value. I think it makes the books have their own personality. What I think has to be taken into account, however, that they haven't really, I haven't seen this be fully expressed, is that flat out, the ones with the subfactions are just better. Right? When it comes to like power, they just end up handing more abilities because yes, they're often on rails, more on rails. But when it's like a bullet train on those rails, it's pretty strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the challenge, right? When the Hermdar was that Tom mentioned was a perfect example, right? There's like, what am I going to get in these generic stuff in Skaven that's going to equal that, right? So if they're going to write a Skaven or Git style kind of generic all-in based on your leaders you take or the units you have or something like that, then they have to understand that like every other army just gets to add some unique special rule to most or all of their troops.
And on top of that, like taking a look at Daughters of Cain, the temples also shift how you can play that army. So if you take Calibron, all of a sudden you can teleport and you can be more of a hit and run. If you take Xanthar Kai, you're going to go more snakes, so you're MSU as opposed to hordes if you chose Drachy Ganeth or Kraith. So it's not that you have to. You can still do a little different and force a different play style in it, but like it's kind of like it's just another switch. Like I want to play this style in this army.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like look at cities and Slaanesh both use the same quote unquote mid subfaction, what we'll call option 2, right? And they are very, very different experiences. Like the cities lists and the abilities they grant really define how that army plays, right? The difference between what you're getting out of something like Tempest Eye, and what you're getting out of something like Living City is a totally different force you want to put on that you could potentially put on the table or way you could play. It might use some of the same troops, right? But you're going to use those troops in a completely different fashion, right? Whereas you look at like the Slaanesh ones, and there's nothing they're really expressing, right? Like, okay, this one, the only one that comes close is like Godseekers, where it's like, well, you get +1 to charge, I guess. Right? So, okay, cool.
Always be charging.
Like, I guess I should charge a lot, right? But they don't do the same lifting that the cities one does. And maybe the direct comparison there, if you don't feel that's fair out there, audience, then compare it to Slaves to Darkness, Same situation again, right? They're also using the type 2 of subfactions. And to me, it very heavily impacts how I build my list and how I play, right? If I play Cabalists, I'm running a very different list than if I play like Despoilers or Host of the Everchosen, right?
Yeah.
Or Ravagers or something, right? Like these are very different lists, very different play styles, right?
Okay, I'm back. How's
Welcome back. Well, I don't hear any echo, so it must be working, whatever you did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
bringing up the Slaves of Darkness battle tome, it kind of goes back to whenever I was talking about what I like about having the heightened, the kind of the potential issues with that style is, I mean, in that book you have what? You have the Marauder build, the
Spellcaster.
Wizard build,
Yep.
Demon Prince.
Spellcaster, Demon Prince, and Varangard.
Yeah. Well,
Like-
Archeon and Varangard, yes.
Right. It leaves that little bit of that gap of like I wanted like my knights and horses, and I wanted like warriors. Whenever you miss that, section, it feels like there's a chunk missing almost.
that?
And I think that's one of the drawbacks of doing the style that I prefer.
It's a good point. And we lamented that on the Slaves to Darkness show. I have 2 complaints about the Slaves to Darkness book. I think it's one of the better designed books released in the history of Age of Sigmar. But it had 2 issues with me. One, Marauders are still bent and they're out of bounds. Like, stop it with the Marauders already. Okay, like for all that is holy in the world, please stop. And 2, there's no build that expresses the Iron Wall. Right? Like, the most classic Chaos troops are Chaos Warriors and Chaos Knights, I would argue, right? They are literally the emblematic troops of Chaos. And there's nothing that makes me want to play with those things. Right? That you go, like, that's definitely the thing for this. Right?
Now, let me ask you this, Vince. Since you're one of your favorite armies is Skaven, and they're one of the ones that doesn't have subfactions.
Yeah.
What would you like to see with subfactions?
I wouldn't want to see subfactions.
Keep as is?
I would want to keep it as is. But I would rewrite the generic abilities that you get for the different clans, and I would change the way you purchase your battle line. Because the fact that once you don't the fact that when you can't mix other battle lines under any circumstance through even alternative generals, right? That the only way I can take Brad Ogres as battle line, which by the way would not break the world. Just let me really be clear here, okay? Is by being 100% Molder except for a Master Clan general. That's it. That's way too restrictive, right? And then so I have to spend a decent amount of points and models and presence on painting at minimum 60 clan rats or 40 clan rats and 10 storm vermin or something like that, right? And it just feels like, okay, all of a sudden this isn't the list that I wanted because I'm spending 400 to 500 points on something that isn't the army I was trying to build, right? When what I wanted is a bit of a mixed arms, right? So what it should actually be is, and Manzak, no, it's not like Warhammer Fantasy style books. It's really not. Nope. Those definitely didn't express it. Now, if you mean 6th edition, back of the book Warhammer Fantasy, where you could play the artillery train of Nuln and that kind of crap, then yes, I agree with that. But certainly it wasn't the case in 8th edition. But at any rate, the problem with building a Skaven army is that you oftentimes have this frustrating thing where the Verminous ability is fine. It's cool enough in its own right. The Master Clan ability is really good, and generally it's gonna do everything you want. Your Scryer ability is tops for a Scryer hero, and then Eshin and Molder basically do nothing. Okay, and the Pestilence one is kind of in the middle. It's whatever, the whole Great Plagues thing. But I don't think it needs to be subfactions. I think you just need to understand that you've got to boost the playstyles through that text, right? That's where we've got to express it. The thing you were talking about, right? The heightened thing. Letting me take a Molder hero and giving one, one fighting beast, a couple extra wounds, and reroll ones to hit or whatever, that's not dynamically changing the way I play the army, right? It's not like Thunder Lizards, where, you go Thunder Lizards in Seraphon, and you're like, oh, it is monster time. You know what I mean? Or you go Boulderhead in Ogre Maw Tribes, right? Like, that is a transfer, like, yeah, okay, I see what this is about. Let's do this. I've got extra wounds on my monsters. I've got extra abilities on my monsters, right? Like, I am ready to rock. Okay?
Do you think maybe this is the ideal world in the form of standardization, where you have standard subfactions that kind of force you to choose, here's your item, here's your ability, here's your trait, et cetera, but also at the same time create enough interest in the other items that you can't take if you take a subfaction, the other abilities and traits, so you can still craft your own personal style of subfaction with the genericness of it, and it be possible to compete and still be unique and fun. Like, is that the dream we're looking for, or is that still too bland?
Look, it's so hard. How many? Here's a general question: how many books have the balance where you feel like taking of the standard type, so the type 1 subfactions, right, which is ability, command ability, blah, right? Literally the thing that we know and love that most books have. So your type 1, right? How many books that contain those do you think legitimately the basic non-subfaction is still a perfectly valid option that equally weighs against taking a subfaction? How many books? In fact, let's just do this. Name one book where that's the case.
Stormcast Journals.
Okay, why?
Because...
and you're telling me the generic is literally balanced against Anvil's the Heldenhammer, because that's what we've got to put it up against.
Yeah, there are some instances in some builds, especially if I'm doing Stormkeep, where I want Staunch Defender.
Gotcha. So because there is a command trait that's good enough, it balances out. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Because I can name one. Okay. I would pick a different one.
Nighthaunt.
Nighthaunt doesn't have any subfactions.
Oh.
Aw. I mean, Nighthaunt just has nothing, by the way. They don't even have, like, any of the types of rules I'm talking about. They are the odd ghost out here. They have neither type 1, 2, or 3. They just got nothing.
Whenever they inevitably get subfactions, there better be a 3 Sheets of the Wind reference.
Oh, they're getting nothing. Ever.
Just hold on to hope.
Absolutely. So I'll name one more. I like Ironjaws. The Ironjaws portion of Auric Warclans.
Okay. Yeah.
And again, why? Because of the command trait, right? Because Mighty Destroyers sitting on, like, being able to use Mighty Destroyers for free once around without a command point is so good that I'm like, look, I know in Iron Suns I get neg 1 to be hit in the first round, and that's real good. And, the countercharging command ability is cool. But
have you seen this free Mighty Destroyers every turn?
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen me doing 2 Mighty Destroyers for free every turn, getting 2 command points for free every round, and putting my entire army wherever I want them on the board? And by the way, that's not just for alphas. Like, that's just every round I get to literally move my entire army wherever the heck I want, basically, right?
By the way, on that, Flesh Eater reports have a similar thing.
Yeah,
right?
Feast Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in all 3. No, this is fine. I was thinking somebody would pick Stormcast. I just wanted to make you defend it so that people wouldn't be like, but anvils. I agree with you. I think those are the 3 cases, right? And in all 3 cases, the reason it works is because there is a singular command trait that's so good, it itself enables a different playstyle.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like, because of what it's doing, it's empowering your force in the same way a subfaction normally would.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
It's turning on your army in that way. So to me, the answer isn't can we make subfactions weak enough, right, that they actually don't balance against the opportunity cost or whatever, like, okay, you got to take this crappy artifact, which, by the way, like, I get it, we've all come down on they've solved the problem. They just saddle you with a subpar artifact because they figured out that if they give you a subpar generic ability, there's no way you're taking it. It's dead in the water, right? If they give you a subpar command ability, it's probably dead in the water, right? Like, the command trait, they're like, oh, but we want your general to be cool because you had to sacrifice taking that. But the artifact, if we make that bad, you can get a second artifact. So if we give you one bad one, it's just like, that's fine. It doesn't hurt that much, right? Okay, maybe stop that.
We see what you're doing.
Yeah, we're on to your shenanigans. Okay. And yeah, like, the answer to me should be after you design all the subfactions for the book and you're happy with them. One of the last steps in the writing of the book should be to go back and look at your sort of generic command traits and artifacts and say, have we made like at least 2 command traits and 2 artifacts that are powerful, interesting, and expressive enough that they open new doors to playstyles on their own that people would go, yeah, that whole package is cool, right?
Yeah.
But also, I just kind of want to do my own thing here, and this is letting me do the way I want to play the army out here in generic land, right?
Right.
And so, to me, that seems to be the secret, because I agree. I think those are the 3 battle tomes that can do it, right? And it's for the exact reasons you said. In all 3 cases, there is a command trait that is so good, you're like, yeah, whatever, And this is comparing in FEC. That's comparing against stuff like Gristlegore and Hollowmorn and Blisterkin,
Right.
whatever, however you say that.
It's doing work. It's
like,
key.
yeah, that's those are 3 real strong subfactions, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say I did a little bit of experimenting with that with the previous doc book when I played without a subfaction, just to see what it was like. And I kind of just called that Keltnar at the time because that was the only temple that existed without anything.
Sure.
And in that book too, it was fun. Now, obviously, it wasn't the most competitive, but it was great for some fun one-off games. So, like, but even still, like, I don't think even that, like, the ability to do that in a way that's like still unique and not going to hurt you for not taking a faction doesn't exist much anywhere else.
See, to me, it just reminds me of that Top Gear meme where they have the supercar where he's like, "This is beautiful, but this I like," and they
yeah, absolutely, right. I think that's in the end what you want, right? You want to be drawn in both directions. You want even the base stuff. Like, forget the subfactions exist for a moment. The base stuff should still be doing work to be expressing the army and what it's there. Again, I buy the book because I want to see what you're going to lay on top of the War Scrolls. I didn't need the book for the War Scrolls. In fact, if I had my way, I'd almost jettison the War Scrolls from the books. They could never do it, but it would just be like a QR code on the last page that says "Scan here to be taken to the AOS," like app. That's where your War Scrolls are, right? But like, okay. So where I want to go next is I want to get into a little bit of a different discussion. But I want to wrap this up. I think what we're saying. Let me summarize. And there's a lot of comments going on. This is fostering a lot of good discussion in the comments. I like to see that. I think the answer is you want to make sure that the subfactions are compelling and interesting because they have either rules or narrative or express elements of the army. Ideally, all 3. Right? That's what makes them compelling. But at the same time, the basic command traits and artifacts that you can take to build your own army, your own flavor, your own story, should also be competing and be expressing those same things. Is that a fair point I think we can all get on board with?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So, next question. I think one of the great strengths of subfactions is that they do help people experience the book, the faction, the play. All right. Like, you read the Seraphon Tome and you're like, oh, okay, this is the skinky one. I take this if I want to do skinky things. This is the Saurus one, right? If I want to do Saurus stuff, I go to this one, right? And I think that is helpful because not everybody is like Mr. Johnny List Writer, right? That's a good side of it. It helps direct people in ways, and it's a linear tool, right? We've talked before about the difference between linear and modular design, right? And subfactions like that are like a very strong linear design element. They are putting you on a railroad track that's like, choo-choo, this is where we know what station we're going, to Saurus Station, so everybody get on board. If you didn't want to go to Saurus Station, get off this train now, right? Okay. But there is a dark side to that. And so here's my question. Is the dark side of the Type 1 subfactions, in other words, the strong hand subfactions, that if they're not calibrated exactly right in their incentive structure, right, that they end up reducing choices because they become the de facto default way to play, right? If they're not balanced well internally against each other, against the generic, anything like that, right? Then they just become, or if they're just too good in general. Like if you've got a book, I mean, Seraphon, arguably 3 of the 4 are really good. Right? 3 of the 4 subfactions are really good. All 3 of them express a different bent part of the army. Okay? So, is there a dark side to this, and how significant is it? Because if these are miscalibrated, I think, 1, they put people on hard rails, and 2, those rails get real strong to where you're like, you're a dummy. When OBR launched, if you weren't playing Petrifex, right? You just felt like you were the biggest idiot. You know? Because it was so clearly the choice. Right? So how much is there a negative? Am I missing anything here? Like, Matt, are there negatives to subfactions for you? Like, do you feel sometimes like they put too much on rails? How do we walk this line?
Well, I think like we were talking a little bit whenever we touched base with the Slaves of Darkness, I think the biggest negative is, well, I wanted this aspect focused on, and I didn't get that. And I do think there is a point where it could be too railroaded, but at the end of the day, if you got rid of subfactions, there's still going to be a meta that arises, and it's still going to be, these are the guys you take, these are the heroes you take, these are the command abilities you go for,
right?
Whether that's there or not.
Yeah, that's fair. Tom, what about you?
Say that again.
Like, is there a dark side here to the subfactions, right? Like, how negative is the negative? Okay, is it worth it? Are there other dark sides I'm not thinking of? Are people getting put too much on rails? Is it sneakily reducing choice?
Not if designed correctly.
Okay. Fair answer, right? But let's take your previous example of Stormcast, right? What are the 2 things, if you were trying to be competitive with Stormcast, which, again, might not be everybody's goal, but let's just assume that's the goal you're aiming for, right?
Right.
What are the 2 things you would take in Stormcast?
Celestin Prime.
No, not units. I mean, sure, yeah. In any army,
are you
Stormcast.
saying subfactions?
Yeah,
or
I'm saying like
units?
in that book, you're making a subfaction like choice, right?
Yeah.
I'll answer my own question. You're either going to take Staunch Defender,
Yep.
right, and go that build, or you're taking Anvils.
I mean, that's not true. No. Like, I actually like
the competitive tourney results seem to disagree with you, but okay.
That's fine. I actually like more than just those 2. There are 4 that I like, but I think that those 2 are probably the strongest.
Yeah, sure.
So that's what I'll say.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so let's go back to my original question. You said, no, it's not a negative if they're designed correctly. What's designed correctly? Like, point at something in the world for me that is within the bounds of what you're talking about?
Like that they are all mutually like playing off one another, right?
Okay.
Like it like you are being invited into those you like into the different things to actually compare, where there's not just like it doesn't skew power one way or the other.
Okay. Is Doc the best example
Of like Doc 1.0?
No, current Doc.
Oh, the best example of this working?
Yes.
Maybe. I think so.
Okay. Because there are what are there now? Six subfactions in Doc. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I could just look over here at this Excel spreadsheet I happen to have on the right side of the screen. That would be smart of me, where it clearly says 6, right? And we could say, and we're gonna go back to our picture now. By the way, we're gonna switch back to picture. I think we all got some stuff out of that, so that's fun. We'll go back to that if we need to discuss it. There are 6 of them, and arguably, probably 5 of them are at least worth a look, compelling, interesting, could do some fun stuff with them. And kind of, or you could picture some kind of competitive list with them, or would make you feel like you're expressing a part of the army in a broadly construed competitive way, right? Like you feel like you're not making a dumb choice. Yeah.
Right.
And that's really where I draw the line. Like, I don't need everything to be the best of the best. People oftentimes, the pushback to this will be like, well, there's always some best competitive. And I'm like, okay, sure. Like, yeah, but if the difference is 1%, yes, on the margins, will the most competitive players probably lean that direction? Sure. But if you make the difference small enough, right, then people don't feel stupid for taking the other things. And that's what you want. You want people to be able to play the thing they want and still feel like they're giving a good game. Not that they left turned and made a choice so wrong that they're going to be horribly punished for it, right?
Right.
Where you said what you want them to have is well, you can take this, this thing of value or this thing of near equal, but maybe slightly less value. Not the choice between I'll give you $100 bill or I'll give you a $1 bill. Well, geez, Pete's, right?
Easy choice.
Right. Okay, Chuck. What about you? Is there any dark side here to this?
There is, and I will say actually, Daughter's Cane is probably the best example right now, because even if you decide to play Xanthar Kai, you could throw in 30 Witch Elves and a Hag and still be fine with having a Melusai themed, heavy theme army. You're not hurting yourself. Kind of maybe an unintentional dark side. So as everything's known, I love Kraith. I've always loved Kraith, and Vince,
Weird.
you hit it perfectly. That I like that drug hit. That interaction at the end of every unit's combat from Doc 1.0, where I get to pick up a dice and my opponent goes, "Oh no!"
Right.
For a 1 in 6 chance, that is, I think out of 100 games, 2.3 dice roll gave me Kraith, and that might have been on a unit of buffed up Witch Elves. That might have been on the last Hag Queen I've had on the table, and that's the only model left. So it's how do you tell how useful that was? But is Kraith still my favorite faction? Yes, I still love it because I'm so ingrained myself into the lore and that drug hit.
Yeah, sure. It's a faction. It is it is dopamine distilled into subfaction form. Kraith is, yeah.
Yes, but within Doc, it is the worst one right now. My dream for what Kraith, I guess, can be, and maybe 3.0 whenever that comes out for Doc. Which I'm sure it's years away before we get our battle tome, but hey, whatever. I still love this. But
I don't know. Lumineth gives us hope.
No, it's fine. No. I'm looking forward to Sons of Bema 2.0 already. So
there you go.
Cool.
There you go. But being so in love with Kraith and having 250 Witch Elves, there is a little part of me that goes, "Oof, my 40 Sisters of Slaughter, which are now the key component to Kraith, isn't enough." I said, I just went to an event this past weekend and I could have taken Kraith. And when I get more Sisters of Slaughter, I have to build up to take a list that I want to take, which is at least probably 4 units of 20 Sisters of Slaughter is what I'm thinking, somewhere around there. So I can get as many of those die rolls as possible so it can have an impact on the game and give me that drug hit. But as of right now, I look at it and go, okay, well, if I want to have a good time, I'm going to take something else right now. If I want to, like, as far as like competing, as far as playing for fun, I'll still take Kraith. It'll still always be my favorite. I'm still going to wave that banner harder than anyone else ever will, and I'm going to go buy, 80 Scissors of Slaughter over the next year.
Sure,
It's just
sure.
it's what I'll do. But like, there's a negative downside that is kind of unintentional, I guess. Whereas if you get so involved and in love with a faction, and then that faction changes to something maybe you weren't expecting, like Kraith became more limited. I would love
Right.
if Kraith was Sisters of Slaughter 5 up, because we want to make sure this is the Sisters of Slaughter one, but the rest of the army can still get that 6 up. That's the ideal of, and then
Right.
if that was the case in this book, then I would argue there is 6 factions people will look at out of 6 for actual competing on the table.
Right. No, it's a good point. I think that there has to be some kind of line here. This is where we get into a challenge, right? Where you want the faction to kind of point in a direction, to lean slightly into a direction, right? Without being so definitively that thing, right? Like where if you don't, this is the Saurus faction. If you don't take every single unit you can as Saurus, if they're not packed to the rafters, if those lizards aren't falling off the edge of the table because you can't even fit all those 32 mil bases onto the table anymore, right? Then you've made the wrong choice, right? Yeah, there's got to be it's got to be a softer touch than that. I think.
Point, don't push.
Yeah, that's a really wow, Matt. You nailed it. I love this. Point, don't push.
That's why Chuck keeps me around.
There you go. You nailed it. That is beautiful. What a wonderful summation. I love that. Okay. So, yeah, I think I agree with all of that, and I think that sounds right. Let me hit a couple points here I saw in the chat. So, Chaos Spawn says, seems like the best, most used subfactions have the biggest NPE ranking, according to the data on the 2-3-21 show. Yep. Yep. I think that's right. I think that when you look at like what a lot of the most used subfactions end up doing is they end up bending the rules so hard, right? That one of the things that came out of the NPE show was a singular instance of one of those things, of one of those NPE things, isn't as bad as lots of those things put together. Right? And since subfactions are almost completely additive rules,
Yeah.
right? They're very likely to take an already NPE bent ability and stack them on something else. Right?
Yeah.
Hermdar is the perfect example of what you were talking about, Tom, right? Because it's adding this like fighting first on top of a unit that already was like not dying, right? That has ridiculous durability, that can punch out a pretty decent amount of mortal wounds.
That you can
Right.
stack to get double piling in. You
Yep.
can stack to get buffs to get 2-up save.
Yeah.
That you can initiate runes to get bonus attacks on a good roll or re-rolls.
Yep. So because and this is, I think, the danger of subfactions. Honestly, I think the way to keep this properly balanced is for them to probably make sure subfactions always end up weaker, like despite what I said earlier, right? Like I do think weak subfactions are going to be the stronger choice, right? Because design-wise, not stronger choice for like you to take in your army. Because they're always purely additive. They're sitting on top of scrolls and battalions and spells and prayers and command abilities and just general synergy buffs and other artifacts that get chosen, right? Like there's
And
right? And so because they're so purely additive, right now I'm not sure we've really nailed the opportunity cost of the thing, right? So I think in general we'd be a lot better off if the type 1 subfactions that are literally purely additive rules, right?
Yep.
We're just weaker. We're just doing weaker stuff. Still expressing in some way the army. You can do that without it going busted. Okay? Let me give you what I consider the best example of this. You ready? Blood Gullet. Just like Ogre Gluttons are the best, like, what I consider the best main, like, just baseline troop in the game, the game should all look like ogre gluttons, right? Like that should be the baseline. Not all. Sure. I'm not saying every troop should actually be ogre gluttons. I'm saying like that's what the world should be balanced around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Blood Gullet in ogre maw tribes lets you do neat stuff. In some factions, it would actually be busted, right? Because it takes all your casters and makes them like double casters and stuff like that. Like it's doing things, right?
Yep.
And yet, because of what it's interacting with, the element of the army, it's just fine, right? Like it's fine.
Yeah. It's fine.
That with what it's working with, like it's mainly buffing gluttons. It's or it's buffing your thoroughly average casters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not taking something that's already supercharged, your best units, right? And making them way, way, way better. Sayer in Lumineth is a great example of this, right? Where it's like Sayer's ability of just like everybody gets 2 pennies now and you can double penny is like that is so indiscriminate. That is the carpet bombing of special abilities.
Yeah.
Right? Because there'll be sometimes in some units in some situations in LRL where it's like, who cares? Like that's just a neat thing. You have 2 pennies. And then there'll be sometimes where it's like, 3 up, 2 up save, invulnerable to everything you're doing. Right?
Yep.
You know, I was fighting, I got in a couple games this weekend with my Slaanesh. And like I got in 2 separate games with my Slaanesh. And one of the games, I played like the heavy Twin Souls army. Spoiler, they are bad right now. I know a lot of people are really repping the Twin Souls real hard. Nope, I was right. They are bad. And like they're just overcosted. If they were like 40 points cheaper, I'd be fine with them. Anyways, you know, and I got into a situation where the Twin Souls were charging like I had to get that stupid Rock Mountain monster off of a place. Like he was in my way. I needed to get rid of him. He was a problem. Okay. I couldn't just get around him. So I had to go through him. This is what happens in the game sometimes. I didn't want to fight him, but there was no other choice. It was that or I get charged by the rock monster next turn. Okay? Which is going to be just as bad. So I took like 10 Twin Souls into him. Okay? And the result of that was nothing. I didn't do a wound to him. Okay? Because he went like penny, reroll ones to save. So my guys were on 5s and 3s because he's also broadcasting an aura of neg1 to hit. Right? And I mean, I was rerolling hits nonetheless. Right? Like I was in my reroll hits turn. Didn't matter. Came in with rerolling 5s and 3s and just like we're scratching at this mountain and accomplished nothing. Because 1 in 36 wounds got through, and guess what? He didn't roll any double ones. That was it. Now, if he didn't, like, because he was able to apply this very powerful ability to exactly the thing he needed at exactly the moment he needed, right? Because Sayer's buff is so indiscriminate. It's like the opposite of Blood Gullet, right? Like, so, there we go.
So how do you really feel about it, Vince?
That's fine. The next day I played a 4-keeper list, and that was way more brutal.
Dunk.
That was a 4-keeper command point juicing list, and I was like double piling in with 4 keepers, you know, multiple rounds in a row. That'll do work.
That'll do, pig.
That'll do. Keepers may not be as good as they used to be, but 8 attacks out of keepers still ain't bad. Okay. So anyways, I agree, Stephen Chan. How do Twin Souls have no rend? Isn't rend Slaanesh thing? Yeah. It's a great question. I don't have an answer. And yes, my dog is back in her chair here. You can't see her, but yes, my girl is here. Anyways. Okay. Cool. So I want to finish this out, guys. We're gonna close out the show here. We're gonna talk about the best subfactions of the game. We're gonna actually do what we said on the tin here, right? And we're going to say, oh, hold on. I need to address this. No, Martin, No, they won't. Let me tell you a story from that very game with that same. I'm sorry, like this triggered me. With that same stupid unwounded mountain. So I lost all 10 of those twin souls because he turned around and just went, ha ha ha, 5 damage smashes, you're dead. Okay, so they all died. Fine. And like the last round of the game, I summoned a keeper. And I charged the stupid cow mountain with Sigvald and the summoned keeper. Both went in on him. Okay? And Sigvald fought first and fought twice. And the keeper fought. And at the end of that, the cow mountain had 2 wounds left. After all 3 of my keeper did 1 wound to cow mountain. Okay? And won.
And he's at full profile.
He was, and he had 2 wounds left, and then he turned around fighting me at full profile because he has like 8 million rules for no reason. Because there happened to be a stone mage somewhere in the zip code. Okay.
Yep.
And he turned around and went and smacked my keeper from full to dead. No drama. 20 wounds. Knocked it out of the park. Like golf swung her off the board. Okay. And then went for his stomps onto Sigvald and basically rolled hot liquid garbage. Like the only thing that saved Sigvald was he rolled utter trash with his stomps. He rolled 3 1s and a 2, and then the game was over.
Sounds like he should be a solid 500-point model.
It was great to charge 600 points of something with multiple piling into that stupid cow mountain and do nothing. Anyways, sorry, that triggered me. That was a story that really hurt me right here when that happened, when I did 1 wound and then he did 20 back to me and we cost the same amount of points. It really hurt my soul. I want you to know that. Anywho, let's talk about the best subfactions in the game. So we're going to go around. I want everybody to pick. We'll do 2 quick rounds of this. I want everybody to pick a subfaction they think is one of the best ones in the game and why, given everything we've talked about so far, why it hits from you. Chuck, I think we already know what your first one's going to be, but tell us what your first one is.
It is Kraith. It will always be Kraith. Kraith is the best subfaction because not only does it portray what that army is about, which is that subfaction about, which is just wanton murder. Like there is there blood there? Yeah. Okay. Well, we need some more. You still have some blood inside of you. We need to get it out. I love that it also adds an extra interaction with you and your opponent. And that interaction it is gold to me. That's as important to me as the drug hit of actually getting it. Is that moment between when it's like I pick up like the opponent's about to like, all right, let me choose what I'm going to fight. And I'm like, well, granted, it's changed now to end of combat as opposed to immediately after combat. But like that, when they think that this phase is done and I pick up a dice and they're like, oh no, you may not be done. That interaction between an opponent is gold. It fits what that subfaction's about. It is fitting what Daughters of Cain is about and cranking that to 11, which is murder. I want to murder you more, so I'm going to murder you more.
Right on. I like it. Okay. Matt?
It's gonna be a little bit of a shocker.
Okay.
But let's marinate on it a little bit. Taker Tribe.
All right. Okay. You're hurting my soul, but all right, let's get into it. Well, no, I agree. I actually don't. I actually agree with this pick 100%, especially in that book. But yeah, tell me why.
Well, so first and foremost, go with Chuck's reason. I mean, does it get more narrative? I mean, it is the Taker Tribe. You kill a guy with an artifact. Oh, you get something for it because you took it. You know, but it's not broken, so you don't just get that artifact. You get something else.
Right.
It definitely highlights all of the aspects of taking a Kraken Eater. You know, just overall, it's just a great way to show the narrative, get some extra push. It does what it needs to do.
I agree. It narratively aligns. It makes sense, right? It has that story hit of these like territorial claiming giants, like what they're all about. 2, it expresses that actually really well in the rules, right? Like, look, being 30 and 15 models is really powerful, right? That's why the list that you see that actually are competitive with Sons of Behemoth tend to be takers. Not all, but tend to be, right? And I agree. It expresses that like one of the elements of giants is we're really good at playing the objective game, right? Like that's part of the army, and boy does it heighten that aspect, right? Yeah, I agree. Okay, Tom, what's your pick?
Some aren't going to be surprised by this at all.
Okay,
Brock Zilfin.
sure, sure.
Okay.
No surprise here at all. Tell us why, Tom.
So I'll open with its weakness. You're forced to take an item that gives you +1 to hit.
Okay. You're saying
That's
the
no.
worst
That is-
part of it, and that's still
That
pretty
is
good.
the worst part of
Yeah.
the entire sub-allegiance.
Sure.
So what does it do? I'm going to start with the strengths. The ability, there's always a breeze when you need it, or there's always a breeze if you look for it. Gives you a hero phase move on any unit, which could be a run, retreat, disengage, or fly high.
Yep.
So this is what allows you to like pick up, put down a ship, and then pop spell bottle, right?
Sure.
Like this is what, because it makes sure that you're within range of wherever you need to be. This is the thing that lets you like get where you need to be to like push forward with an 18-inch move and still be able to dump all your troops 6 inches out on an objective.
Right.
Like there's just like the utility. There's very few other games that are just so unencumbered of a free hero phase movement like this. Like that game, that ability will single-handedly win some games, period. If that isn't egregious enough, all units, not just ships, but all your foot troops and everybody else, auto run 6, always. Always. Those foot heroes that are trying to keep up, those chemists, are just running 6. So they just move 10 because they're not going to be doing anything else anyways, that your foot heroes.
Right.
So like even your foot heroes can like hoof it to wherever they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your article and amendment. Let's jump up to the generic. Just a bonus engine work for a ship.
Right.
So if you don't take a battalion, you're at 2.
Yep.
If you do, you're at 3.
At 3.
Sure. Yep.
And then the other negative, by the way, is a command trait that you take if you have an admiral as your general, which is 100% avoidable for most KO armies.
Okay. I'll buy it.
So it is a sub allegiance that has, and then obviously the item in that +1 to hit. It has 4 banging abilities. And you don't have to take the command trait.
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting point we didn't discuss, right? Of the idea of the things you can dodge. Like some of them will have stuff requirements you can dodge, which is always interesting as a sneaky bonus.
I can think of no other subfaction where everything is banging on all cylinders.
Sure.
Just down the line, like every single ability is just better than almost any one of those you compare across the board with any of the other subfactions, and on every level, whether it's a generic ability, article, amendment, footnote, it's sorry, oops, I forgot one. I forgot the article, which was all of your ships always reroll 1s to hit against units that fly.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. Like, it's obviously very competitive. I don't think us saying Barak Ziflin being competitive is going to be a real shock to anybody, right?
But I'm actually saying I think it's the best sub-allegiance. And if you look at every single one of those lines that I just listed, when you compare it against every single other sub-allegiance, it wins in every single category.
Which I think might point to it being a problem rather than a benefit, but sure.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. It's great.
Okay, all right, my first pick. My first pick is going to be our good friend, the Maws of Jork. And yes, that is the correct term for it. Don't correct me. Fight me. It's the Maws of Jork. Like basically your Squig subfaction that was published in White Dwarf. And I don't say that because it's actually very competitive. I don't think it super is. But I do think rules-wise it adds the rules you would want to see. I think story-wise it's awesome because you want to play with squigs because they're fantastic, and this does lean into that really well. Mm-hmm. It does, like, on the does it heighten part of an army into a fully expressible thing? Boy, is that one getting a 10 out of 10, right? Like 100%. Okay? And it's just cool. Like, it's just fun. When you line up against somebody who's playing Maws of Jork, you're not sad. You're like, oh, this is awesome. This is good. Let's have a fun game. Right? And, like, that is not a bad thing. Like, knowing that you're taking something that you're going to have a fun time with and your opponent's going to enjoy playing against, and that really is expressing both a story and heightening a part. Like, one of the coolest parts of the Gitz army, I think, makes for a best subfaction. Right? Overall, again, viewing these holistically. Right? Okay, round 2. Here we go. Chuck, what's your second pick?
Briomdar from the IDK.
Oh, okay. Why so?
Well, I'm more of a fan of Namarti builds. I do have some eels in my list because you're silly if you don't. But I love the fact that I can add an extra unit to bring it on my Soul Scryer, because it fits the narrative that they're kind of in the quote-unquote forest of the sea with all the kelp and everything they have if you read their lore. But it is also so satisfying. And Tom and actually Matt, you both play KO, so you'll understand how wonderful it is to walk up to a table full of terrain, but in your mind's eye, it's just flat to you because you can just fly. You can't fly over models, but you don't want to. And the best part, even better than that, is walking up and playing a weaker IDK list against IDK, and you put down 2 boats, and all of a sudden, I can still come over those boats, and you can't. I have the advantage in this game, even though you have the better subfaction. I just love that feeling. It's so satisfying, and to do it with, a bunch of foot elves is doubly satisfying for me as opposed to a bunch of ship dwarves.
Fair enough. I like that. Matt, your second pick?
I'm going to go with my current army, Zytrek. I feel like they do a really good job, once again, of double downing on the lore, and then also figuring out a way to transition that into interesting rules that add a little extra kick to the army.
Sure, and expressing that spellcasting part of it really well. Right? Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think Zytrek, I like, as a subfaction, I think Zytrek is really interesting. It's one of the ones that, like, I don't mind playing against when it comes to LRL. I'm like, okay, yeah, I see what you're on about here. You're like, I get it. This feels, in flavor of what the elves are about. You're going to dominate the magic phase. I hate magic anyways. This seems pretty good. You were probably already going to dominate the magic phase long before you chose that, so that's good. Like, yeah, I agree. Like, I think Zytrek is cool in what it's doing and what it lets you say about the army. And it has, like, again, rules-wise, it's got some perfectly viable choices in it. Like, it's not like you're picking something that's competitively weak here, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm with that. I like that choice. Tom, what's your pick 2?
I'm going to go with Tempest Eye.
Solid. So I was hoping somebody was going to mention it. Okay, great.
Yeah, so the allegiance ability for Tempest Eye, so it gets all the city stuff, which is just, like, good.
Yep.
Just a bunch of bonus stuff, like the adjutant and the so, like, bonus points, amplified magic, so, like, all those generic traits. Plus it's where we go? There we are. It adds 3 in your turn 1. It adds 3 to movement, which is often like the turn that you want to be moving, like you want to be getting into position. And it adds +1 to save rolls, so that if you are first or second, it's good. So whether you're like going to weather an alpha at the top of one, or whether you're moving into like charge at the bottom of one, it like that bonus save actually like does some work. +1 to run is always welcome. Like it's just not a bad thing because you're going to often be running and shooting in this army or running and charging, and that +1 is going to be applied to a bunch of different units. This is also the force for cities that can pull in KO. So you actually have a really good add. They're like you're getting real value out of some of those units because this is a heavy shooting army.
Yep.
It has a real standout command trait, which is +1 to wound in a 12-inch bubble, which is really, really good. Or the ability to give your general run and charge and fight first, which that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So like there's actually two real decisions to be made here. Two real decisions to be made, two real options for your decision around command traits. The artifacts are like, okay. That whole bonus command point 50% of the time, it's pretty good.
Sure.
Because that doesn't exist a whole lot anymore. And then, especially with losing the 5-up save your command point, this is actually like doing some work with the 4-up. And then finally, it has some good spells. I'm a fan of the AOE bonus attack bubble.
Sure.
So
I'm also a fan of the cast a spell, get a command point.
Yeah,
which is also in there.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one in the midst of everything.
Yeah. I mean, Tempest Eye is the subfaction of cities that was so compelling to me. I built an entire completely kit-bashed, customized, plastic card infused terrain using army just to play with it, right? So I think that's probably a statement in and of itself right there. Yeah, I mean, it's so cool and compelling and unique and expressive and also just like a really cool place. Like if you read the lore of Tempest Eye, it's just a really neat location in the Mortal Realms. So yeah, I dig it. So yeah. And you can play KO without feeling dirty because you're playing KO in a not KO army. So it's great.
Right.
You can take all their ridiculous rules and throw those to the side and just be like, nah, let's just go +1 to wound and call it a day. We're done. That's all we need, boys.
Roll a cannon, move on.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, it's like just
Pretty good.
there we go. Okay. Cool. My second pick is going to be a bit of a cheating because I'm going to call it a tie. But I'm going to call it a tie between Knights of the Empty Throne and Despoilers, both of whom I love. Both of whom are out of Slaves to Darkness and or, quote-unquote, Wrath of the Everchosen, but they're both Slaves to Darkness things. I love Knights of the Empty Throne because I think that Varangard leading a force as a hero is just such a cool idea. Like, I love the idea you take these 6 basically hero knights, right? And then they become this 130 wound hero. It's, like, amazing. And they have cool artifacts and cool command abilities and stuff like that. Your old grasping plate for the 6-inch pylon's obviously pretty popular and cool. But it's just also a really sweet narrative because the Varangard, even though they're sort of the swords of Archeon, you have to imagine that they also just do their own thing. They don't only hang around with their boss, right? And each of them is a legend, a titan amongst the forces of chaos, right? And so when they get together and lead a force, it says something, So, and they feel pretty darn awesome in that subfaction. Like, if you want to make Varangard feel like Varangard should feel, in that subfaction, they feel pretty strong, right? Like, you feel the power of that stuff. So I really dig Empty Throne. Despoilers, because my other favorite unit out of Slaves to Darkness beyond what I mentioned so far, which is all the like heavy armored stuff, so warriors, knights, and Varangard, is the Demon Princes. I think Demon Princes are just like classically one of the cool elements of Chaos, and partially that's because the narrative has constructed it as a goal, right? Like the mortal heroes are trying to earn the favor of Chaos and become a Demon Prince or whatever, right? Often, not always, but often. Because that's your role of the boxcars, right, on the Eye of the Gods table. And Despoilers, again, makes your Demon Princes really cool. Between being able to, like, pitch black terrain, and they self-heal, much better than they would in any other case, right? Their aura is real big. Like, they push because Slave's Darkness is all about pushing out that aura, and suddenly making it an 18-inch aura is really impactful on just sort of the game and how effective that aura can be, right? The difference between a 12-inch aura and an 18-inch aura is actually massive on the table, right? So those are my two. I love playing both of them. I've played a ton of both of those. And what I like about them is neither of them are extremely determinative of your broader faction. Like, your broader inclusions in the list. Sorry, that's what I mean, right? Like, you can do the Despoiler thing, and then actually the meat of the army is Marauders if you're a horrible bent cheater and a bad person, right? Or you can do, like, the Despoilers, and the meat of the army is a bunch of sweet Chaos Knights in the Ruin Battalion if you're awesome and a cool person, right? So, like, you can go either direction, and it's still perfectly valid. So it still has this, like, great flexibility in army building that still defines the character without setting the entire list. That's why I like it. Okay.
Actually, real quick, could I offer
Yeah.
for one more bonus one?
I was literally about to say, let's do one or two more bonus ones. You don't have to go in full defense. Just knock out some quick wins you think are also awesome. Chuck, go ahead.
This is going to be purely from a narrative standpoint. It's why I've chosen it. Iliatha. Sure. Because we have cloning through magical means in the mortal realms.
Okay.
Teclis tried to clone Altharion's body to a T based upon what he found. And I look at that from a narrative aspect and why I've chosen it. So if I ever wish to reinvent Teyrathi, she can be cloned. If you ever want to create a character and have them be changed, they can be cloned now.
Oh, there you go. So Teclis, what have you done? You've opened Pandora's box here.
It's a narrative Pandora's box that, like, I don't think anyone has really started to begin to realize yet, especially the GW lore writers. Like, there's a lot that can happen, and it could take things off the rails in a bad way. So caution, but hey,
sure.
Let's have some fun.
Well, you introduce cloning, things get fun fast. Yep. All right, cool. Any other bonus one you want to throw in at the end?
No, I'll leave it there.
All right, Matt. What are your finest bonus hot takes? Your quick hits.
I think I got to give the award to most improved, the Choppas from Iron Jaws.
Okay.
Man, they went from "what are you talking about? I need to go check my war scrolls to see what you're talking about" to "oh, hey, yeah, that could actually do something."
Sure. All right, I like that. Any other picks?
Hermdar. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, sure. Oh no, we can't escape them. Okay, Tom, any hot picks for you at the end here?
Hermdar.
Yeah, sure. It was inevitable. We can't escape it.
Yep.
And Despoilers. I'm a big fan of Despoilers still.
Sure.
in Slave's Darkness.
Okay. For me, it's going to be Thunder Lizards in Seraphon. As I've said many times, don't hate me. I play a fair version of the army. I use 0 Bastillodons. Tom, were there any Bastillodons in my Thunder Lizard list?
No.
Okay. Thank you. I play regular Stegodons, and it's fun to play with Stegodons. I have a bunch of Stegodons, old 5th edition metal, kill a man by hitting them with the model Stegodons. And it's just really fun to play with, like, Triceratops or whatever they are, stomping around, going roar. So I definitely dig that. Honorable mention to Invaders in Slaanesh, which I've always repped for a long time. It is a command point engine. People underestimate its power. They look at it, they're like, I don't get it, what's it about? It's about command points, and command points are how you win the game, okay? I have hit double digits in command points in multiple games using that. So, that's why I love it. I don't ever like failing charges or running. I want to make every charge, run exactly how far I want to run, reroll every one I could ever want to reroll, and fight twice on every model I could ever want to fight twice. And the only way I'm going to feed that gluttonous appetite for command points is with Invaders. So be it. I'll take it. And then my final quick honorable mention, also in the Iron Jaws, has got to be Over the Iron Suns. I mentioned earlier why I don't play it, but I do think it is a great subfaction. It's super fun. It has a lot of cool abilities, and it's certainly very competitive. So that would be, I think that's that would hit a lot of them. I think we've touched a lot of books. We've touched a lot of books over the course of this show. We've mentioned a lot throughout here of other things I like. Like we mentioned Blood Gullet, which I think is which is cool. We mentioned Boulderhead, these kind of stuff in the Ogre book, which is obviously solid. We talked about, Beasts of Chaos last week, and I do stand behind, like, Gav Spawn. It's the losingest thing, according to the list bot, by the way. Gav Spawn is, like, the worst, but it's the most taken. It's, like, the most taken and the worst performing. It's completely flipped, basically. But I think Gav Spawn is just cool. I love what it is. Chaos Spawn are sweet, and taking a bunch of Chaos Spawn that give your people extra attacks is really cool. Again, expressing a really weird way to play that army, and a narrative thing that for the Beast of Chaos, Spawn is not a punishment. It's a goal. It is their demon prince, right? So I think stuff like that is awesome. What did we miss? What battalions didn't we say? I'm sure you've got your favorites. Drop in the comments. Defend your answer. Tell us why you loved it. Chuck, Matt, thanks so much, guys. It was so much fun having you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us on. It's always fun to be here.
Ironbark. There you go.
All right. I was wondering if anybody was going to mention a Sylvaneth thing the whole day. We were this close to not even mentioning that they exist. Oh,
No is the answer.
All right. At any rate, give it a like if you're still watching. We appreciate it. Liking it helps other people find the show. It's so easy. It's moving your mouse from here to here, or just tapping your finger on if you're watching it on a mobile device. It's that simple, folks. Give it a like. We really appreciate it. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. But as always, thank you so much for watching. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.